Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. We're gonna have some fighting words. So in this video, I want to talk about the upcoming fight with Gervonta Tank Davis versus Mario Barrios. And I've already done a fight breakdown for Tank, so I want to do a fight breakdown for Mario as well and give his pros and cons to victory or the reason why he will suffer a loss. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. The first thing that I have for Mario would be that he's very disciplined. He's a very disciplined fighter. He's not a reckless guy. He initially he's not a reckless guy. He comes out very just poised, very calm demeanor, and it's almost like he's just studying as he comes out. Which is a good thing. One thing I've always liked about Roy Jones was he would just kind of see what you're doing, see how you move. Floyd Mayweather would also do it. Floyd Mayweather hardly has ever won any first round. He doesn't throw anything. He just kind of just views what you're doing. Mario does the same thing. He's just gathering information. A lot of fighters actually wait until they get some shots tossed at them to get their information from that. But Mario, he gets his information more so from movement. And when I mean movement, I mean maybe like shoulder movement, because a lot of times you can't look at a punch coming, but you can look at the shoulder. You can look at the chest. You can look at the feet. You can watch his feet move, things like that. And he's just gathering information. So that is I definitely think that's a good attribute to have, especially when you're young, because a lot of times when you're young and you're in there, I know at least in my past, when I was young and I was in there, I just wanted to like go attack somebody, so he's very poised. You can tell he's been around some seasoned people. You can tell that he's definitely had a lot of sparring just by the fact of how he comes out, all calm and calm demeanor, even though you're in a ring, so that's one good thing about him. Another thing, he's a great body puncher. He has long arms and he can whip them around to your body. He's very tall for this division, and it works in his favor when he's shooting to the body. And I think he's a very devastating puncher. Actually, I mean, I've watched some of his fights where he's dropped guys with just one punch to the body. And he's finished many fights with punches to the body. So that's definitely, anytime I see somebody who's a body puncher, I always just think that's somebody who's had a lot of sparring, because your natural inclination when you're in a fight is to attack the head. It's seemingly the most vulnerable part in the body, so you just go straight for the head. Somebody more seasoned, somebody with a little bit more miles, understands if you attack the body first, everything else will kind of come to you. Everything will come to, how do I say? Everything will work in your favor. For example, the arms come down. For example, he won't have as much pop on his punches because he's hurting to his body. For example, he's gonna run out of wind because you're hitting him to the body. Now he's so those things always good when you go straight to the body and you start off with the body. I mean, I'm not saying don't give him something to think about upstairs, but definitely take some real estate from him downstairs. Another thing that I like about him is he's very well balanced. And what I mean by that is because he does take somewhat, he definitely utilizes his height in some ways. He's always balanced. He has a very wide stance because he's going to throw very heavy shots and he's going to be planted. And that's what that wide stance is for. Which is also great. I mean, he doesn't have amazing footwork, but for the type of fighter he is, he's a pressure fighter. He's definitely a pressure fighter. You'll know where he's at all times. So to have that wide stance, it's not only going to help him in delivering a hard punch, but it's also going to help him in taking a hard punch because he's so firmly grounded and he has that wide stance, which is another good thing. Little sidebar, Mario also has a great left hand. So just want to put that in there. But one thing that I did find out that I think is, in my personal opinion, does give him a real advantage is he used to be a sparring partner for Amir Khan. And Amir Khan is highly decorated. He's been a world champ. Very, very decorated, very skilled boxer. He has some blemishes on his record, true, but he's a very skilled fighter. Very skilled. And I mean, amazing jab, unbelievable hand speed, great footwork, and combinations. So if you've been sparring Amir Khan, now I don't know how long he's been sparring Amir Khan, but still, if you've been sparring Amir Khan, and I know it was probably sometime around 2015 through maybe 16 or something like that, around maybe 15 to 17, I'll say. That's when Amir Khan was Amir Khan. That's when Amir Khan was Amir Khan, and he was that guy. He was definitely that guy. So he had some great work coming up in the ranks. He had some great work in his sparring. I mean, he's an elite guy. He's an elite guy. You don't. What you want to do is get your sparring from elite people. You don't necessarily want to go out there and just test the waters in an actual fight. You want to get that stuff in sparring where nobody sees it. Where you can get beat up, but you can learn from it. And it's all a learning and growing process, as opposed to you get under the flashing lights and then you get beat up. So that's definitely a plus. Now, what worries me about Barrios, the first thing is he's very hyped for his division at 140. And it just drives me crazy that he does not fight tall. He's a tall guy. And why he doesn't fully utilize his length, it just annoys me, to be honest with you, because he can avoid a lot of the damage that he's had in previous fights if he would just utilize what he naturally has, and that's his height. If he could just pull back a little bit, if he could extend his jab to here. So there's one thing that I like. I switched over my fighting stance just a little bit because I've watched UK fighters, and I believe it was Lennox Lewis who was trying to teach Deontay Wilder. And he said, why are you fighting from here when you can fight from here? And you can bring the jab from here and you can bring it back. If somebody returns fire, you can always bring the hand back up here, but you don't have to bring it here. It's a longer distance. That being said, Lennox Lewis was typically taller than a lot of his opponents. So he always fought tall, which, I mean, if you watch the fight that Lennox Lewis had with Mike Tyson, he just kept Mike Tyson right here the whole time. Mike Tyson never got close to Lennox Lewis. He kept him right here, and that's what he's supposed to do. If I can damage you without catching any damage, by all means, I want to do that all night. If Barrios would just use his natural gift as a tall guy for the 140-pound division, he could be very successful with Tank. Very, very successful. Just keep him here. Keep him here. Keep in mind, Tank is a lot shorter. He's like, what, 5'4", 5'5"? He's going to have to work to come in. Most of the time, just the way Tank fights, there's a lot of lunging going on because Tank puts everything in his punches. But if you keep him here, not only can you stop the lunging because he has to go past this, but because of Barrios' wide stance, you can hook off at any given time if he dares to lunge in. So that's one of the things that I wish he would just, fight taller. I wish whoever's in his camp would say, hey, why don't we try working on this where you would stand a little straighter. Typically I wouldn't say stand up straight, but because he's so tall, fighting somebody so short, it's okay if he stands up a little straighter because it's still going to be difficult for Tank to catch a chin. Let's see. So another thing is Barrios does get a little comfortable in there. And he doesn't get comfortable like how a lot of other people get comfortable. And what I mean by comfortable is he will drop his hands. He'll go from here to his hands are now around his waist. And I get it. Listen, if you just feel like you got a guy's number, that's one thing. If you got a guy hurt, by all means, drop your hands and get the right positioning. If you're Roy Jones in like 1997, you can do whatever you want. But I don't like that he drops his hands so much. Barrios will drop his hands even before a guy is hurt. You know, and a part of that, again, credit to him though, a part of that comes from sparring. The more sparring you do, the more comfortable you are. One of my favorite fighters is James Lights Out Tony, hands down. James, I've heard stories that James hardly ever really trained. His training was running and sparring. It wasn't hitting bags, it wasn't hitting a speed bag, it wasn't hitting mitts. It was sparring and it was running. And if you look at the way James Toney fights, you can see rounds and rounds and rounds of sparring. He's just how comfortable he is. He's talking to guys in there. His hands are low. He's just slipping and dodging shots while he's talking to other people. I mean, but that comes from a lot of sparring. When you spar that much, you just have a sensitivity to what's going on around you when you're in chaos. And Barrios has that same thing about him. His hands are low, but he definitely because he's confident. But it does worry me because he is going up against somebody as explosive as Tank. And Tank doesn't need like 5 punches. He only needs 1. Honestly, he can put you out. So with that does worry me. And the last thing that I would say that worries me about Barrios is he tends to get in firefights. Like I said earlier, it's not going to be hard to find him. He knows that he's big for his division. So a lot of times he can just kind of muscle guys down or walk them down or just big brother them all night. And if they want to engage, he's more than willing to do that. And he'll just sit in the pocket. That worries me, again, for 2 reasons. 1, he's tall. He doesn't need to do that. 2, he's fighting a much shorter guy. And that's the key to that guy's success. Tank has to fight in the pocket. Just to make, for the best results, for the most success in this fight, his best chance is to fight in the pocket. And if you engage him someplace where he's the most comfortable and he's gonna be the most successful the night of, it's not a good thing for you. It's definitely not a good thing for you. You see what happened to Leo Santa Cruz. He let Tank get too close. And when he should have got out of that corner, he didn't. He stayed there just because he was hitting him. But Tank was very composed, very calm, caught him with an uppercut, and just lights were out, just like that. I don't want to see Barrios in a firefight. Barrios is actually a really good boxer. And if he just boxes, I think he very well could win this fight with Tank, honestly. Again, this is a step up in competition, in my personal opinion. Not only just because Tank is going up in weight class, but Barrios is not old. He's not over the hill. Barrios isn't somebody who's suffered defeat after defeat. Barrios is not Gamboa. Tank is actually taking a real risk in fighting him, in which case I give him all the credit in the world. But this is not going to be an easy fight. But I mean, those are my pros and my cons for Mario Barrios versus Gervonta Tank Davis. But you tell me what you think down below, and as always, please like and subscribe.